Can you hear me? Yes, you can. So that's a nice morning, full of sex. Uh, yeah, that's good. That's how mornings should be. Okay, so we'll talk about sexual dysfunctions today. Uh, I will try to understand what's going on there, what causes them. And my starting point will be what is a sexual dysfunction. A sexual dysfunction is a difficulty that an individual or a couple faces during any stage of normal sexual activity. So if you're having sex and you feel pain, you experience pain, or you cannot experience orgasm, that would classify as a sexual dysfunction. The interesting thing, the surprising thing with sexual dysfunctions is how common they are. So if we take men, approximately 30% of adult men suffer from, have a manifested sexual dysfunction. The most common one is premature ejaculation, followed by erectile difficulties and lack of interest in sex. For women, things are a bit worse. Approximately, sorry, 40% of women suffer from or have at least one manifested sexual dysfunction. The most common one is lack of interest in sex, followed by difficulties experiencing orgasm and pain during intercourse. And I'm saying at least one because people who have one sexual dysfunction usually have another as well. So if a woman has a low sexual desire, it's quite likely that she also has difficulties experiencing orgasm, or she has pain during intercourse. Okay, so overall, it seems that at least 1 in 3 men and almost half of women have a sexual dysfunction. That's a very high prevalence, which leads to the question, why? What causes this? And some good candidates, I would say, is poor mental health and poor physical health. So, for instance, if you suffer from depression, you don't feel like having sex, obviously, or if you have some cardiovascular problems, then this might affect your erectile functioning. But most of the people who have a sexual dysfunction are mentally and physically healthy. That is, these factors do not really explain sexual dysfunctions. Yes, they have an effect, but in most of the cases, they just don't explain this. And this made me curious, just try to figure out why, what really causes them, why we have such a high prevalence of sexual dysfunctions. And to answer this, I employed an evolutionary perspective. Now, in the evolutionary perspective, our body is a collection of mechanisms or adaptations that enable us to survive and reproduce. That's what they do. So in this perspective, we have specific mechanisms which regulate sexual functioning. Which brings me to the question of why evolutionary forces have allowed considerable variation in sexual functioning. So if we take women, for instance, there are a lot of women who have low sexual desire and a woman who have high sexual desire. The question is why evolutionary forces have not shaped all women to have low sexual desire, or even better, high sexual desire. And one possible answer is that there have been weak selection pressures during human evolutionary time. And I can demonstrate what I mean by that with a different example. So, when lights go up, when this nice session ends, you will notice that people's noses are very different. That is, they vary in size and shape. Why? Why not everybody's nose is the same? Well, part of the answer is that during human evolution, there have been weak selection pressures on noses' size and shape. That is to say, an individual with a predisposition to have a small nose was not better off in terms of survival or reproductive success than an individual who had a predisposition to have a moderate-sized nose. As a consequence, all predispositions remained in the population, and what we have is this, or what you will see when the lights go up. So perhaps this was also the case with sexual functioning. That is, in certain aspects, in specific areas of sexual functioning, maybe in the past there had been weak selection pressures, and as a consequence, we have considerable variation. Now, the bad news is that we cannot go back in time to see what was there. Yet, we can get an idea, and we can get an idea using evidence from the anthropological record. All right, so what was happening is that in the past, our ancestors used to live in small bands of people who based their subsistence on hunting and gathering, and later on in human evolutionary time on agropastoralism. Now, there are modern societies today which are pre-industrial, and they base their subsistence on hunting and gathering and on agropastoralism. An anthropologist went there and studied them and produced a rich anthropological record. By studying this record, we can sort of figure out what's happening in these societies today, and we can infer what was happening in the similar societies in the past. Okay, so what the anthropological record tells us? It tells us that in these societies, mate choice is regulated. That is, individuals are not free to choose their own mates. What happens, for instance, is that parents control mate choice and choose spouses for their children. So, for instance, if their daughter comes of age, they would arrange a marriage with a man of her choice and would give her to him. And when they would exercise choice, their primary concern was to arrange, to establish an alliance with another family. So this is the common pattern in modern pre-industrial societies, and we can infer that this was also the pattern in ancestral human societies. And we don't even have to infer this because we have historical evidence. For the later part of human evolution, we have historical records. That is, we have records from ancient Greece, Rome, Byzantine Empire, pre-Victorian England, and so on. And these tell the same story. They agree. That is, in these societies, mate choice was regulated. Individuals didn't have much choice over their partners. Okay. So putting everything together, the anthropological and historical records tell us this story. We come from a society, from ancestral societies where mate choice was regulated. Now, this is important for understanding sexual functioning, for understanding the variation of sexual functioning. Let me be more specific about this. Let me examine ejaculation latency time. That is, how fast, how soon a man ejaculates after the initiation of sexual intercourse. Now, in an ancestral pre-industrial context, a man who would ejaculate soon after the initiation of sexual intercourse, this is in seconds somewhere here, allowing little time for the sexual satisfaction of his partner, wouldn't be better off or worse off than a man who would ejaculate later on, allowing more time for the sexual satisfaction of his partner. Why? Because in ancestral pre-industrial societies, women didn't have any choice of mate, so the sexual satisfaction of women was a secondary concern. Men didn't care about this too much, and it didn't matter much. What happens then is that both predispositions would remain in the population. That is, the predisposition to ejaculate soon after the initiation of sexual intercourse or the predisposition to ejaculate later on, both would remain in the population. And what we have today is this distribution, this nice distribution of ejaculation latency time. So you can see here, this is in seconds, and indicates how fast a man would ejaculate after the initiation of sexual intercourse. Okay, that is why we have this distribution due to weak selection pressures. What's the problem now? In modern societies, things are different. Mate choice is no longer regulated. Women have a choice. They can choose with whom they will stay with. And this means that a man has to provide some satisfaction to his partner to keep her. And in turn, yes, has to be. And this means that men who are here, and a lot of them, may be in trouble because they ejaculate soon after the initiation of sexual intercourse, not allowing considerable time for the sexual satisfaction of their partners. So a lot of men then, in a modern context, have this problem, and because this is a problem, we tend to label it premature ejaculation. But this is a label. It doesn't mean that those who are here are ill or there's something wrong with them. It's just normal variation. Which still, however, causes them problems. It causes them problems today. 100 years ago, if you are here, no problem. Today, problem. Yeah, that's life. Okay. Sorry, before I go to this. This is the story also. This can be applied to women as well. So, for instance, most of us will have a mechanism which generates sexual desire. And the purpose of this mechanism is to motivate us to seek sexual intercourse. Now, in a context where mate choice is regulated, what happens is that parents arrange the marriage of their daughters, and they give her to a man of their choice, and they grant him the right to have sex with her. And he would exercise this right irrespectively of the will of his wife. This means that a woman with a predisposition to have a low sexual desire will not be better off or worse off in terms of reproductive success than a woman who has a higher sexual desire. That is to say, both women will have children, will get married, have children, and will pass on their predispositions to future generations. Now, today, however, things are different. A man needs the consent of his partner in order to have sex with her. And a woman with a low sexual desire might be unwilling to give this consent, or she might not be willing to give this consent as frequently as her partner would like. So this would result in a situation where the man would like sex, the woman wouldn't like, they would have fights, and eventually this would tend to classify low sexual desire as a dysfunction. So we tend to label this as a dysfunction because this creates friction between the couples. Again, women who classify, who fall in this category, that is approximately 40% of women, doesn't mean that they are ill or anything. That's a normal variation. Okay, all right. So that's the kind of labeling we give. Okay, so to bring everything together, in order to understand where we are today, we sort of need to figure out where we came from. And we came from an environment, a context where mate choice was regulated. And as a consequence, this, on certain aspects of sexual functioning, there had been weak selection pressures, and this result in considerable variation in certain aspects of sexual functioning. Now, because the environment is different, this variation might cause people problems. However, this is a normal variation. At least in most of the cases, it is a normal variation. So that's, I guess, the take-home message of today, that most people that experience these difficulties, they shouldn't think that, okay, I'm ill or there is something wrong with me or whatever. This is a normal and a common and very common thing. But before I finish, I wouldn't like people to think that's, okay, fine, all right, that's if I have this difficulty, all right, no problem, it's normal, I'm going home, and that's it. No. Perhaps people need to work on this if this causes them problems. So I mean, to go back to my example with the noses, let's say if I have a big nose, well, that's normal variation, okay? But perhaps this causes me some problems. I don't like it. It hurts my self-esteem. Aesthetically, it's not what I want. So even if it is a normal variation, if this is causing me trouble, perhaps I may consider to have some plastic surgery. Now, the same goes with the sexual dysfunctions. In most of the cases, people who face sexual dysfunction, that's a normal variation. However, if you are not satisfied with your sexual functioning, my suggestion is try to do something about it so to improve on this. So that's all. Thank you very much for listening.